Uncle Dan.
Yes, hello.
2,
Hi.
3, 4. How are you?
Oh.
2, 3, 4.
And step, touch, and
I just
back
can't. I
together.
can't have more than 4 seconds of silence in my life, where I'm terrified of what might happen.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think that's reasonable.
He claws his own eyes out at 5 seconds. So
That's
like,
right.
just
Which is, yeah, exactly.
Once bitten, twice shy.
All I can say is, if there are any cats or mirrors around, hide them right now, because we're about to dive into something. Uncle Mark, what are we going to talk about today?
we're about to get pretty fucking real, boys. And,
Okay.
And
Is this a very special episode?
On a very special.
This is a very special episode of the How to Heretic, as you will see. So I got to thinking.
By the way, that phrase is 80s for someone's going to be addicted to something.
Oh, yeah, there's
That's right.
There's on YouTube. There's a channel of very special episodes.
Oh, really?
And they do synopses of all those 80s sitcoms that had a very special.
Is that
episode.
true?
Yeah.
And it's always kind of a secondary character having a marijuana problem.
Right,
Exactly.
exactly. And jumping out a window.
getting reefer madness and freaking out running into traffic. So I got to thinking about today's subject for our very special How to Heretic when I was waiting for a cab outside my apartment building here in Chinatown in Vancouver. So
Okay.
I looked down by the firefighters' hookup and saw a sign that said floors 4, 13, and 14 do not exist. I thought, that's damn peculiar. So, there is a strange penumbra that is kind of like an afterglow that sticks to many of us in and out of the religious universe. And no, I'm not talking once again about the stupid goddamned auras like I did in episode 96. This is something else. It's like auras in that it's not real and it's pretty silly, but it's very sticky nonetheless. Now, guys, today I want to talk about the subject of Stevie Wonder's 1972 smash hit single off the album Talking Book, which topped the Billboard Hot 100 and Rolling Stone ranked as number 74 on their list of the 500 greatest songs of all time. And in my humble opinion, one of the most fucking epic musical arrangements in all popular music, Superstition. Now,
Love that song.
Can we just play the
Great
song,
song.
in its entirety
Would
right
you
now?
play the song?
Cannot. We
In its
do not have,
entirety.
we need about 20 more patrons before we can do that.
Well, actually, we'll just play the whole album. Then they have to sue us per song. It'll be a whole paperwork mess. They don't want to do it. So more about that song and its startling relevance to today's subject in just a tick. So song aside, if we were to isolate superstition in general as a single belief system, it would be the largest religion in the world by far.
Oh, yeah.
For the obvious reason that it would be comprised of pretty much every single one of the world's religions and the vast majority of people who claim not to have one, ourselves included, as I will demonstrate. So be ready for that. So, what is superstition? How does Webster's dictionary define it? Well, it's one of those words that's as subjective as faith or belief or religion or cult. Every group defines it in their own image and in their own service, right?
Right.
So we atheists essentially ascribe all belief in the intangible and irrational as superstition. So that is therefore the correct definition, obviously. Where Mormons say it's everything Catholics do except for a little of the Jesus stuff. It's what Catholics have long said. It's what the Jews do, but they're doing better at not having that end in incinerating them in the town square these days. And
Progress.
it's progress, right? It's always moving forward. It's what the Jews say the Muslims do because It's what the Muslims say everybody else does who refuse to believe that Muhammad split the moon in half and flew away on a horse, or that once in your life you simply must go throw pebbles at an old stone column in the desert, and on and on and on. But perhaps the one common uniting factor we as human beings have is that we think everyone else is superstitious as fuck, and we are not. But
Right.
are we not? Or are we not?
Skun dun
In basically
dun.
every dun dun dun. In basically every context, the word superstition is a slur or a pejorative. So religious believers who subscribe to high-minded theological concepts like grace or resurrection or redemption tend to consider trinkets against the evil eye, a silly thing Dan discussed in episode 62, even as some of them carry such a bauble in their pocket or around their necks out of habit, like a
Right.
crucifix. So As I mentioned before, non-believers tend to think of even the aforementioned high-minded theological concepts such as resurrection and redemption through ancient human sacrifice as nothing more than intellectual trinkets against the evil eye. And I think we all would probably tend to agree with that definition of the word. But at the root, all religious and or superstitious beliefs and actions are a form of both pareidolia, which Dan discussed in episode 20, which means projecting order or meaning where there is none, and more broadly, trying to fill a chaotic, uncaring natural world with some designed causality, because for many, the yawning terror of this tiny blue dot hurtling through the infinite vacuum of space around a dying star with no greater meaning is probably a little too much to bear. But for the sake of our chat...
I think it's fun. I really,
what? I think it's fantastic.
Really enjoy all that.
I do too. I think it's absolutely... And I'm not kidding. I think it's fucking fantastic.
Yeah. Just don't tell Doug about it. Doug's not dealing with it well with that. It was nothing.
He's got his lucky penny, so he's not worried. But for the sake of our chat, let's take superstition to mean something like the belief that certain actions and behaviors can affect outcomes of events one has no physical control over. This encompasses words like magic, fate, and luck. So I did the smartest possible thing. I asked Twitter, the best place to get real verifiable information, what kind of superstitions people still clung to even after leaving religion for a more rational method of living, and it's pretty funny/sad. We got stuff like holding your breath as you walk past graveyards. I'd never heard that before.
Oh, really?
I've heard that one. I've heard that one.
Have you heard that one?
Yeah, I have.
The fear of the hoot of an owl near your home for fear it presaged death.
Well,
there was
one thing we have discovered here on the How to Heretic is that owls are particularly scary to Christians and Jews.
Yeah.
They are afraid of nothing more than exotic birds. There was a weird thing in Utah, of all places, about putting a rusty nail through a lemon to ward off the evil eye. Lemon, not native to Utah, but there you go.
I like it. I'm going to do it.
A very sad one about it being okay to wish well for other people, but never yourself because it would bring bad luck. No hats on beds, shoes pointing up or the luck would drain from them. And our friend, patron, and very real atheist, Cindy Lynch, represented all sports fans everywhere with a plethora of superstitions around how she might fuck up the game for her beloved Cubs if she isn't extremely careful.
Right.
So
that's vital. That is all absolutely straight down the middle stuff. Right. I don't know how anyone could say anything against it.
There probably is no one more superstitious than sports fans, especially if your team is really bad.
I don't know. We'll get to it, but you're talking to a theater guy. I can tell you the theater people are good at superstitions.
Really?
We'll get into that.
Were you ever in Macbeth?
Yeah.
Oh.
Well, hey, we're not in a theater. You can say it all you want. You say that in the theater, it's a different matter altogether.
Okay.
We are in the theater of the internet, Dan.
I've done Macbeth like 4 times.
All right.
Oh.
So this all leads me back to what I teased about how Stevie Wonder's Superstition as a song relates to what will now become the confessional part of this very special How to Heretic.
Oh boy.
While the song is crazy cool, my recent examination of the lyrics left me a little bit ponderous. So, for instance, the line, 13-month-old baby breaks the looking glass, is weird, but hits all the right notes of triskaidekaphobia and mirror magic. But the line, very superstitious, wash your face and hands, is a little less clear. Perhaps a healthy fear of very real germs is something Stevie thought was an absurd folk belief.
I didn't know that it was breaks the looking glass. I always wondered what was happening with that 13-month-old baby. I couldn't really understand.
Yeah, breaks the looking glass.
Okay,
breaks the mirror. So
I mean, I'm superstitious about babies like hurting themselves on broken glass. So. You know, in that sense, it feels pretty bad if you've got a baby wandering, toddling around near a broken mirror.
You're so superstitious you don't let babies crawl over glass. Weird.
I know.
Super weird.
I know.
But the odd lyricism of the 74th greatest song ever isn't the point I bring it up again. I bring it up because in the 70s and 80s, when this song was in constant rotation on the radio, I was not only an overly imaginative, very overly sensitive preteen and teen, but I was stuck, as you fellas might recall, in a suffocating religious community that was itself flailing in the stupid fever dream of the satanic panic, as we've discussed in episode 23. So when the lyric, very superstitious, the devil's on his way, came on, I was by then in a frantic state of panic, screaming for my older brothers to turn it off.
Wow.
The poisonous bullshit about the devil I was spoon-fed by my cave-dwelling family and my community, and triggered by this song, kept me from sleeping on my back for a decade after I was fully realized as an atheist. God. Seriously, and that little anecdote, that comes from my insane aunt who would come down from Canada in her Winnebago and talk about how she fought with the devil every night when he was trying to crush her.
Oh, yeah.
So she had sleep paralysis, and she was a crazy person. So great. Work that out on your young relatives. It's a really cool thing to do. So in addition to nightly devil crushing, I carried a few things forward as superstitious that even if I don't observe them now, I think about in moments when I would have in the past. For instance, I used to be able to not stop reading a book on a page that ends with a 6 or a 3.
Oh, really?
Really?
My devil terror caused me to live in fear of the number 6. And when I attended a lecture at the university when I was 17, and I just remembered this by the fucking people who wrote Michelle Remembers, Lawrence Pastor and Michelle Smith.
Oh. Really?
Who are the architects of the Satanic Panic.
Right.
These people caused this to happen. And their whole thing was 3 a.m. was the most dangerous time for demonic activity because it was the witching hour.
Oh, my God.
If I ever woke up and saw the clock said 3:33 a.m., that was the most dangerous time, according to them. I was terrified.
Wow.
So,
Wait, now, wouldn't you want to be awake during the most dangerous time? I mean,
you want to sleep through that. It's like people who are afraid of flying. You just go to sleep.
That's true.
And you deal with it.
and hope the flight attendants, unload you when you get there.
Yeah,
so.
exactly.
keep you from swallowing your tongue.
Speaking of Macbeth, that's where the phrase witching hour comes from. Anyway, go on.
Is it really?
Yeah.
How about that? So, dear uncles, I open the floor to discussion about what absurdities you and yours have carried over into intellectual adulthood from the long dark night under the steeple. I've said a few of mine. What do you guys still participate at all in superstitious activity?
I definitely have an anxiety about breaking mirrors.
Okay, interesting.
I've never gotten past that. Like, I know, it's ridiculous. And, 15 minutes after I've ever broken a mirror, I forgot about it.
Right.
I never, tried to calculate the bad luck that I've got to navigate. But in the age of smartphones, it's been particularly anxiety-inducing because I've broken my share of smartphones.
Oh, interesting.
Every time I do, I get a wave of anxiety about having basically broken a mirror.
How funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. Like I said, I'm from the theater world, and there's a lot of superstitions in the theater world.
Oh,
and
for sure.
What's funny is I don't believe in any of them. None of them affect me at all. But if you fucking say the word Macbeth in front of, if there's more than just me and you in the room in a theater, I'm gonna make you go through the fucking ritual to take the curse off of it.
What's the ritual?
To cleanse the theater.
Well, I mean, it depends on who you ask to some extent, but you have to go outside of the theater. You have to swear. You swear a blue streak. You turn around 3 times. You spit, and then you ask to be let back into the theater. Something along those lines. Some combination or variant on that. Now, the reason that I do that is not because I care about it or that I'm worried that there's some curse on the theater, but other actual superstitious actors will get in their head about it, and they won't be able to do their fucking job.
Right.
So I don't ever say Macbeth in the theater because I'm not going to fuck with other people's brains.
The next show you're in.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go there on opening night, and right when the lights dim and the orchestra starts to rise, I'm just gonna scream from the audience, Macbeth!
Okay. I think that's a great idea. You are now kicked out of the family.
It's a weird way to die, but you do you.
I do like, some of the theater superstitions are actually kind of fun though. Like it is a very strong thing that you don't whistle backstage at a theater. Mm-hmm. And the ostensible reason for that goes back to when they were first doing scenery changes that would fly in and fly out. They had them rigged up on ropes, and they would pull, drop in a backdrop and then fly that one out and drop in another one. And the only people who were qualified to do that kind of rigging were sailors.
Huh.
And so they would hire sailors to do it, but then they would also these sailors would whistle to each other to indicate when they were when it was time
The
to
cues.
raise
That's how the cues were done.
So if you were whistling backstage, you might cue a set to drop in that wasn't at the right time or whatever. So some of them have origins that make sense.
Right.
But
Yeah.
they don't make sense now.
Right. Well, I think
Other than if you whistle and it can be heard by the audience, that would be a bad thing.
right. Well, here's one. This is very strange, but if I'm looking down while I walk, I find myself making sure I take odd steps on single pieces of cement. So I have to. I'll catch myself now. Me in my 40s.
God, it's fucking exhausting to be you.
Just like taking short steps or long steps
Oh,
to
how funny.
make it so every group of steps on a piece of pavement is odd.
That's
Not
funny.
even- I don't know where that comes from.
When I was a kid, there's that whole step on a crack, break your mother's back
Yeah.
or whatever thing. So I started to avoid stepping on cracks, just sort of not because I believed it, just because you do it.
Yeah.
And then somehow, as a kid, something got into me that I shouldn't be touching the ground when a car passed. So I would jump whenever a car passed me. So I'm avoiding cracks and jumping as cars pass. It was just this weird thing. It wasn't ever a superstition that I nailed down as to why I was doing it or what I thought. I knew Mom's back was fine.
I would give anything to see a video of preteen Dan just walking down a busy street.
This is me realizing that I am in the podcast business with two insane people. This
was your fault.
I thought not stopping reading a book on a page that ended in 6 was insane. I'm not. I don't even rate.
Oh no, it is.
Well,
Don't
I'm
worry,
not even
that's-
coming in third here.
So here's the question then. If
Yeah.
we are, pattern-seeking animals, and we're obviously creatures of habit, we probably have, as a species, a proclivity towards, ritualistic behavior, right?
Absolutely.
So religion at some point discovered the power of worming its way into that part of your neuroses, right?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we as critters, it's clear where a lot of this stuff comes from, right? Because there's this whole agency detection thing where if you see grass a ways from you parting,
Right.
you need to be scared because there may be a snake or some sort of critter in there that's going to get you.
If you're scared and there's nothing, you're fine. If you're scared and there's something, you might get away.
Right. And if you're not scared and there's something, you could get killed.
Right, exactly.
Could be a fucking chupacabra in there. You got to be ready for that.
And it's almost guaranteed to be a chupacabra.
Right. And it's always a chupacabra, guys. Come on. And there's kind of a chicken and egg thing though too. I think, Doug. It's well, sure, we have these impulses, and I think in its most cynically, yes, religion, learned how to take advantage of those impulses for whatever control, commodification, whatever. But really, we invented religion to fill the gap, to answer that pattern where there was none, right?
Sure.
And the need for causality in the human mind to see that there must be a reason for these things,
Right.
when there's not a reason for these things, right? Other than biology does what it does, nature does what it does, without any control.
I think you're just saying all of this because Mercury's no longer retrograde and you're feeling better about the world.
Thank you. Yes, I just had my chart done.
Well, what's truly insidious, though, is not just that, we've created some superstitions to explain the causality of things, but that we also we attach a consequence to it.
Yeah.
So if you don't do your ritual, something terrible will happen. And then we teach that to our children.
Yeah, it's a really fun trick that we do.
Do you know what I read too when I was researching this? Is that you become more dedicated to the superstitious, ritualistic behavior the less frequently it works. Does that make sense?
What?
So, it's a weird psychological issue where if you didn't, you didn't have your lucky penny and or you had your lucky penny and this happened. Well, you'd better make damn sure next time you have your lucky penny to prevent it happening again.
That's so funny.
Because
Rather than looking at that penny and going, this doesn't work
Clearly
at
this
all.
thing is
exactly.
pointless.
So
Yeah.
it's why people that have superstitions about their sports teams. I mean, I don't know which are the bad baseball teams other than the fucking Salt Lake Bees who lose every game and still have fireworks 3 blocks from my house. But the worse your team is, the more intensely superstitious people are about it.
That's so
And
strange.
it's a really weird negative feedback situation, but it's apparently a fully recorded psychological phenomenon in
Yeah,
people. So.
I mean, it's the same with the conspiracy theories, right? Everything that's every bit of information that's counter to confirming it confirms it.
Right.
Well, yeah, and that's so crazy. Every time, all across America, every night there's a football game. They all pray to win. One team loses every night, right? But
Still
they all
George
continue to
Carlin.
do it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, I guess are there superstitions that can be positive?
All of them.
I don't know.
Well, I mean,
Well, there was also something really interesting in the reading that performers or athletes, kind of goes to what Dan was saying about people not being able to perform on stage. If someone says Macbeth, they'll just get too fucked in the head about it. If you're going into a performance and you have a few rituals you do beforehand, there is actually a calming and centering effect that happens.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
You're using these weird things to kind of get in a headspace where you are able to perform your duty, right? Your job, or your run your race, or whatever it is you do. And it's not that putting the left shoe on before the right shoe is effective, with the trickster gods and the gremlins of the universe. It's that it calms you. You go through a series of things that get you ready for that space.
There's a lot of evidence that ritual can be useful in the world, and that ritual can be helpful for calming and centering your mind, all that sort of thing.
but we're drawing a line between ritual and superstition, right? A ritual is just a habit,
right.
and a superstition is a belief.
I think there's a lot of overlap for sure. But,
Yeah.
But one place where superstition is incredibly harmful is black cats, right?
Yeah.
Black cats
right.
tend to be abandoned, mutilated, abused, far more than other animals because of the stupid fucking superstition, right?
So people go out there and abuse a white cat every now and then. That's what we're saying.
Well, what Dan is saying is he doesn't see cat race.
That's right.
But
exactly.
He wants the abuse he doesn't want the abuse to stop. He just wants it spread around, and I think that's fair. So I think in conclusion, I would admonish ourselves and our listeners just to, for fun, get in the habit of kind of breaking your superstition once in a while, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Just get it out of your head, because it's just, what's the point? It's so, unless you're just doing it for fun, like I think putting on a certain pair of socks the day your team plays is kind of funny, but the rest of it's just stupid.
But
We
if
don't need it.
and if it starts to gain any control over your brain, if you start to feel really bad, if you don't do
Or
your
anxious.
superstitions,
Yeah.
then it's time to start challenging them, because
right.
what you don't want is for some stupid belief that you were just playing around with before to suddenly gain any control over your actual life and behaviors.
That's right.
Doug.
And they can be very controlling. I mean, the reason there are not those floors in my apartment building, and it's such a serious issue that there has to be a sign for the firefighters to not try to find the 13th floor
Right.
when they're fighting a fire, is because of bad luck. And because I live in Chinatown, the 4 and the 14, 4 is bad luck in China.
Right.
So my building's really fucking 3 stories tall, I guess, but because of all the bad luck associated with every culture who lives here. So it's goofy. It's ridiculous.
And then
Knock it off.
Donald Trump takes all those imaginary floors and adds them to his buildings.
That's right.
That's right. The tallest ever. So there it is. That's superstition.
Well, nothing but even steps for me from now on.
Yeah, exactly. Knock on wood. Hopefully we'll all get over our superstitions.
Exactly. Let's move on.